I never thought I'd be sharing something like this, but I need to get it off my chest. I'm Tracy, 32F, and I've been married to Alan, 34M, for 8 years. We have 2 children, Emily, 6F, and Sam, 4M. From the outside, our life probably looks perfect: successful careers, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and 2 adorable kids. But behind closed doors, things have been falling apart for a while now. Alan and I met during our sophomore year of college. We were both part of the debate team, and our competitive natures instantly drew us to each other. I remember our first real conversation. We were arguing about the ethics of artificial intelligence until 3 a.m. in the campus coffee shop. By the time we realized how late it was, we'd also realized how much we enjoyed each other's company. We started dating soon after, and for the next 2 years, we were inseparable. We pushed each other to be better, both academically and personally. When graduation came around, we both landed entry-level positions at competing tech firms in the city. We were thrilled. Not only were we starting our careers, but we were doing it together. We got married 2 years after graduation, in a small ceremony with just our closest friends and family. My parents, who had divorced when I was young, were skeptical about us getting married so young. But we were confident in our love and our shared ambitions. We bought a small apartment in the city and threw ourselves into our careers. For the first few years, everything was great. We were both moving up in our respective companies, and our competitive nature kept us motivated. We'd come home and share stories about our day, celebrating each other's victories and commiserating over setbacks. We traveled, tried new restaurants, and enjoyed the perks of being a young, successful couple in the city. When I got pregnant with Emily, we were overjoyed. We moved to a larger apartment, and started planning for our future as parents. Alan got a significant promotion around the same time, which meant longer hours but also a substantial pay increase. I took a few months off after Emily was born, but I was eager to get back to work. My mother helped with childcare, and we hired a part-time nanny to fill in the gaps. Looking back, I think that's when things started to change. We were both determined to be good parents while still excelling in our careers. We told ourselves we could have it all: the successful jobs, the perfect family. But the reality was much harder than we anticipated. As Emily grew older and Sam came along 2 years later, the demands on our time increased exponentially. We were constantly juggling work commitments, children's schedules, and household responsibilities. Date nights became a thing of the past. Most evenings, we'd collapse on the couch after the kids were in bed, too exhausted to do much more than scroll through our phones or watch mindless TV. Our conversations, once filled with intellectual debates and shared dreams, now revolved around grocery lists, school events, and work complaints. We stopped really listening to each other, each of us too wrapped up in our own stress and exhaustion to offer genuine support. I noticed Alan staying later and later at the office. He'd say he was working on a big project, and I believed him because I was doing the same thing. We were both pushing for higher positions, telling ourselves it was for the family's future. But the truth was, we were using work as an escape from the growing tension at home. Things came to a head last month. I had a crucial presentation for a potential big client. I'd been working on it for weeks, and I knew landing this account could mean a significant promotion. I asked Alan to handle picking up the kids that day, and he agreed. But at 3 p.m., just an hour before my presentation, I got a call from Emily's school. They said no one had come to pick her up, and they couldn't reach Alan. Panic set in. I called Alan's office, but his assistant said he was in a meeting. I left an urgent message and tried his cell, but it went straight to voicemail. I had to leave work immediately, abandoning my presentation and probably my chance at that promotion. When I got to Emily's school, I found her sitting alone in the office, looking scared and confused. The guilt and anger I felt in that moment were overwhelming. I managed to get both kids home, and then I waited for Alan. He didn't come home until after 9 p.m. When he walked in, he looked surprised to see me sitting at the kitchen table, still in my work clothes. The argument that followed was the worst we've ever had. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment came pouring out. We said horrible things to each other, bringing up past grievances and hurling accusations. And then, in the heat of the moment, Alan confessed something that turned my world upside down. He admitted that he'd been having an emotional affair with his coworker, Lisa, 29F, for the past 6 months. He said it wasn't physical, that they had just been talking and texting, but that didn't lessen the betrayal. He tried to explain that he felt neglected and unappreciated at home, and Lisa made him feel valued. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Yes, our marriage had problems, but an affair? I never thought Alan would be capable of that. I felt like I didn't know him anymore. All those late nights at the office, all those times he was distracted by his phone, it all suddenly made sense. In a moment of anger and hurt, I told Alan to leave. He packed a bag and went to stay with his brother. The kids were confused and upset when they woke up the next morning and their dad wasn't there. I told them he had to go away for work, but I knew I couldn't keep up that lie for long. It's been 3 weeks since that night. Alan has been calling and texting, begging for another chance. He says he's ended things with Lisa and wants to work on our marriage. But I don't know if I can trust him again. The thought of him confiding in another woman, sharing our private issues with her, makes me feel sick. I'm torn about what to do. On one hand, we have a history together and 2 young children who need both their parents. I think about our college days, about the dreams we shared, and I wonder if we can find our way back to that. On the other hand, I don't know if I can ever look at Alan the same way again. The trust is broken, and I'm not sure if it can be repaired. I've been putting on a brave face for the kids, but inside, I'm a mess. I can't eat, I can't sleep, and I'm struggling to focus at work. I've told my boss I'm dealing with some personal issues, but I know I can't keep using that excuse forever. The irony isn't lost on me. I've spent years prioritizing my career, and now it's slipping through my fingers because of my personal life. I find myself thinking about my parents' divorce when I was young. I remember the confusion, the feeling of my world being turned upside down. I swore I'd never put my own children through that. But now, I'm wondering if staying in an unhappy marriage would be worse for them in the long run. I'm not sure what the future holds. Do I try to salvage this marriage for the sake of our children? Or do I walk away and try to build a new life for myself and my kids? I never thought I'd be faced with this decision, and I'm completely lost. Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. I feel like I'm drowning and I don't know which way is up anymore. Update 1, it's been 2 months since my last post, and I wanted to give an update on my situation. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to offer advice and support. Your words helped me more than you know during those dark days. After much soul-searching and several long, painful conversations with Alan, we decided to give our marriage another chance. It wasn't an easy decision, and I still have my doubts, but I felt we owed it to ourselves and our children to try. Alan moved back home, and we started attending marriage counseling. The sessions were intense and often left us both emotionally drained. We had to confront issues we'd been avoiding for years, our competitive nature, our neglect of the relationship, and the breakdown in communication that led to Alan's emotional affair. One particularly difficult session revealed that Alan's relationship with Lisa had progressed further than he initially admitted. They had kissed once during a late night at the office. Alan swore it didn't go beyond that, but the revelation shook me to my core. I felt like I was back at square one, questioning everything all over again. Despite this setback, we continued with counseling. We also made some significant changes in our lives. Alan requested a transfer to a different department at work to avoid daily contact with Lisa. I cut back on my hours at the office, realizing that my career ambitions had come at too high a cost to my family. We also started having weekly date nights, taking turns to plan activities. It felt awkward at first, like we were strangers trying to get to know each other again. But slowly, we started to reconnect. We remembered why we fell in love in the first place and rediscovered shared interests we'd forgotten about. One night, we ended up at the same coffee shop where we had our first real conversation in college. We stayed there for hours, talking about everything and nothing, just like we used to. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope for our future. The kids seemed happier with both of us around more. Emily stopped having nightmares, and Sam's behavior at daycare improved. It was a stark reminder of how our marital issues had affected them, even when we thought we were hiding it well. However, not everything was smooth sailing. There were still moments of doubt and resentment. I found myself checking Alan's phone when he wasn't looking, a habit I'm not proud of but couldn't seem to break. Alan, for his part, became almost too attentive, as if trying to overcompensate for his past behavior. About a month ago, I ran into Lisa at the grocery store. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since finding out about the affair. My heart raced, and I felt a surge of anger and hurt. She tried to apologize, saying she never meant to hurt anyone, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I left my card in the aisle and walked out of the store, shaking. That incident brought up all the emotions I thought I'd been working through. I realized that while Alan and I had been focusing on our relationship, I hadn't properly dealt with my own feelings about the affair. I started seeing a therapist on my own to work through these issues. In therapy, I've been exploring my own role in the breakdown of our marriage. It's hard to admit, but I realized I had been taking Alan for granted, assuming he'd always be there no matter how much I prioritized work over our relationship. I'm learning to take responsibility for my part in our problems, without excusing Alan's betrayal. As it stands now, Alan and I are still together and working on our marriage. Some days are better than others. There are moments when I feel hopeful about our future and others when I wonder if I'm making a mistake by staying. But I'm trying to take it one day at a time and focus on what's best for me and my children. I know we have a long road ahead of us, but I'm cautiously optimistic. If nothing else, this experience has taught me the importance of open communication and never taking your relationship for granted. I'll post another update when I have more to share. Thank you all again for your support. Update 2. It's been another 3 months, and I felt it was time for another update. A lot has changed since my last post, and not all of it for the better. Alan and I continued with our counseling sessions and were making steady progress. We were communicating better, spending more quality time together, and I was slowly starting to rebuild my trust in him. The kids seemed happier, and our home life was more peaceful than it had been in years. We even started planning a family vacation, something we hadn't done since before Sam was born. We thought it would be a good opportunity to reconnect as a family and make some new, positive memories together. We were looking at beach resorts, imagining building sandcastles with the kids and having quiet evenings watching the sunset together. However, about a month ago, everything changed. I received an anonymous email with screenshots of recent text messages between Alan and Lisa. It was clear from the messages that they had reconnected and were planning to meet up. My world shattered all over again. When I confronted Alan, he broke down and admitted that he had run into Lisa at a work conference 2 weeks prior. He claimed it was innocent at first, just catching up over coffee. But old feelings resurfaced, and they started texting again. He swore nothing physical had happened yet, but he couldn't deny that he was contemplating it. I was beyond devastated. All the progress we had made, all the trust we had rebuilt, it meant nothing. I felt like a fool for giving him a second chance. The pain and betrayal I felt were even worse than the first time because now I knew exactly what he was capable of. This time, I didn't ask Alan to leave. I packed my bags and took the kids to stay with my sister. I needed space to think and process everything without him around. The kids were upset and confused, but I knew I couldn't subject them to the toxic environment our home had become. While staying with my sister, I did a lot of soul-searching. I realized that I had been so focused on saving our marriage that I had lost sight of my own happiness and self-worth. I had been willing to forgive the unforgivable, all in the name of keeping our family together. But at what cost? I thought about my own childhood, about the tension in our house before my parents finally divorced. I remembered the relief I felt when they finally separated, even though it was painful. I wondered if I was subjecting my own children to that same tension by trying to force a relationship that was clearly broken. After 2 weeks of separation, I made my decision. I told Alan that I wanted a divorce. He begged and pleaded, promising to cut all ties with Lisa and do whatever it took to save our marriage. But this time, his words rang hollow. I knew I could never trust him again, and I wasn't willing to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if he was being faithful. The past month has been a whirlwind of emotions and practical considerations. I've met with a lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. We're trying to keep things amicable for the sake of the kids, but it's hard. There are moments when I look at Alan and see the man I fell in love with, and it breaks my heart all over again. But then I remember his betrayal, and I know I'm making the right decision. The hardest part has been explaining the situation to Emily and Sam. We've tried to be as honest as possible without burdening them with adult issues. They're struggling to understand why Daddy won't be living with us anymore, and it kills me to see them hurting. We've arranged for them to see a child psychologist to help them process everything. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. Some days are better than others. I'm focusing on being the best mother I can be and rediscovering who I am outside of my marriage. I've started a journal to help process my emotions, and I'm considering joining a support group for divorced parents. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm making decisions for myself, not just for the sake of my marriage or my children. It's scary, but also liberating. I'll post another update once the divorce is finalized. Thank you all for your continued support during this difficult time. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm finally ready to share the latest developments in my life. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago, and I've been adjusting to my new reality as a single mother. The process wasn't easy. There were heated arguments over asset division and custody arrangements. Alan fought hard for joint custody, which I initially resisted given his history of prioritizing work over family. However, after lengthy discussions with my lawyer and the child psychologist, we agreed on a co-parenting plan that puts the children's needs first. Alan has visitation every other weekend and one evening during the week. So far, he's been sticking to the schedule and seems genuinely committed to being a more present father. The kids are slowly adapting to the new arrangement, though they still have moments of sadness and confusion. On the work front, I've had to make some changes. I took a slight step back in my career, moving to a less demanding role that allows me more flexibility for the kids. It was a tough decision, but I realized that climbing the corporate ladder wasn't worth sacrificing my relationship with Emily and Sam. Financially, things have been tight, but manageable. The divorce settlement was fair, and Alan has been consistent with child support payments. I've had to budget more carefully, but we're getting by. I've even started teaching Emily about saving money, turning it into a game to make it fun for her. As for my personal life, I'm slowly healing. I've started seeing a therapist regularly to work through my trust issues and rebuild my self-esteem. It's been challenging to confront the anger and hurt I've been carrying, but I know it's necessary for my own growth and for being the best mother I can be. I've also reconnected with old friends and made new ones through a single-parent support group. It's been comforting to talk to others who understand what I'm going through. Last month, I even went on my first date since the divorce. It was nothing serious, just coffee with a nice man I met through a mutual friend. While I'm not ready for a relationship, it felt good to know that there could be a future beyond my failed marriage. Alan and Lisa are officially a couple now. It stung when I first found out, but I'm surprised to find that it doesn't hurt as much as I thought it would. I've realized that their relationship is no longer my concern, as long as it doesn't negatively impact our children. Emily and Sam have met Lisa a few times during their visits with Alan. It's been a challenging adjustment for all of us. Emily, being older, has had a harder time accepting Lisa's presence. We've had some tearful conversations where she's expressed feeling like Lisa is trying to replace me. I've had to reassure her countless times that no one could ever replace her mom, while also gently encouraging her to give Lisa a chance. It's a delicate balance, and some days are harder than others. Sam, being younger, has adapted more easily, though he still has moments where he asks why we can't all live together again. These questions break my heart, but I try to answer them as honestly and age-appropriately as I can. On a positive note, I've rediscovered some old hobbies that I had abandoned years ago. I've started painting again, something I used to love in college but gave up when work and family life became all-consuming. It's been therapeutic, giving me a creative outlet for my emotions. I've even started teaching Emily some basic techniques, and our Saturday morning painting sessions have become a special bonding time for us. I've also joined a local hiking group. Getting out in nature every other weekend has been incredibly rejuvenating. It's given me time to clear my head, stay active, and meet new people who share similar interests. Last month, I even took the kids on their first real hike. Seeing their excitement as we reached the top of the trail and looked out over the valley below was a moment I'll cherish forever. Looking back on the past year, I can hardly believe how much has changed. There have been moments of intense pain and doubt, but also moments of unexpected joy and personal growth. I'm proud of myself for having the courage to leave a situation that was no longer serving me, even when it felt like the hardest thing in the world. To anyone going through a similar situation, I want to say, it does get better. It's not easy, and there will be days when you want to give up, but stay strong. You're more resilient than you know. As for me, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I'm focusing on being the best mother I can be, rebuilding my career on my own terms, and learning to love myself again. For the first time in a long time, I'm excited about what the future might hold. I've started thinking about goals for myself that don't revolve around work or relationships. I'm considering going back to school part-time to pursue a master's degree, something I've always wanted to do but never found the time for. I'm also toying with the idea of writing a children's book, inspired by some of the stories I've made up for Emily and Sam over the years. There are still challenging days, of course. Days when the loneliness feels overwhelming, or when the logistics of single parenthood seem impossible to manage. But I'm learning to reach out for help when I need it, whether that's to my therapist, my friends, or my support group. I'm also learning to celebrate the small victories. Like the first time I successfully assembled a piece of furniture on my own, or when I figured out how to fix a leaky faucet by watching YouTube tutorials. These might seem like small things, but each one is a reminder that I'm capable of standing on my own 2 feet. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your kind words and advice have been a source of strength during my darkest moments. I may not post updates as frequently now, but know that your support has made a real difference in my life. Here's to new beginnings and the strength to face whatever challenges lie ahead.